All right. Hello again. So last year, at the end of CitizenCon, I had the sort of road to release roadmap. As of last year, we said, well, we've achieved 7 of those 12 that we'd set out to do, starting with the hangar and going all the way to location persistence and planet tech. But since then, we delivered the OCS and band culling at the end of last year, which I think made a big difference on the client performance. We got a few things that we're doing this year. So if I go. So we've showed it, but Planet Tech 3.5 is what we did last year. Sorry, I'm behind on the... Can I not get this up here? Otherwise, I'm going to have to look up here. Oh, forget about it. So we had ship purchases, ship rentals, which is actually quite cool because you don't have to buy with cash any of the ships. You can rent or purchase them with the money you're earning in the game. And we've also been shifting to quality of life staggered development, which is, you saw a little bit of that in Alpha 3.7. We're more serious about that. So we've moved the teams to 6-month cycles. We're still delivering patches every 3 months, but the teams themselves get 6 months to work on their features or their content that will go into whatever patch they're sort of designated for. And I think it gives them more time to do good work and iterate and give you a better experience. And we're slowly working on aspects of the gameplay, in terms of, say, the feel of flight or the feel of combat. We're doing things like, Sean was showing the sort of theaters of war where that's a good sort of contained mode that will allow us to sort of fine-tune what's really cool about Star Citizen, which is sort of the mixed arms, the ability to be on the ground or in a vehicle or up in space. And so we are increasing our focus to make sure that the game experience now is, 3.7 I think is probably our most stable release today. But the game experience now is good, and then it's just improving as we go on. So this is what's coming up next. So in 3.8, we are going to have the very first iteration of server-side OCS. And you guys didn't know it because we didn't want to spoil the thing, but the demo we ran this morning was running it, and this, what we're running right now, is running SOCs, and you'll understand why it's important as we get into the demo, assuming it doesn't crash, which, you never know. To let you know, so it's the first iteration of the server-side OCS. So we have server persistence in the session of the server. So the server, whenever it leaves an area, it streams stuff out. It remembers the state of all the items and all the stuff that was there at that time, but it doesn't persist beyond the server session. The bigger thing, which we've talked about in the future, is sort of the iCache, which is the full persistence. So platform persistence is one other thing that we're putting in the 3.8, which is is basically a halfway house to the very full persistence, but the platform persistence is going to allow us to save off the alpha UEC that you've earned. Also, any items or ships that you've bought or rented in the game are going to... So they're going to get saved off to the platform in the same way that we record all your shop cash purchases. And so when a new release comes, we can re-entitle it back to the account in the same way we do for everything that you do. And the plan with that is to not have to wipe between iterative releases on a major release, and potentially even from one release to the next. And we do reserve the right if there's like a major issue or a major rebalance, or we have to redo the database on a major release, then at that particular time we may have to wipe it. But in general, the goal is to let you guys make money in the game, earn things, collect things, and not have it wiped every time we do a new release. So we're aiming to ship that with, that will hopefully be, that should be with the 3.8 patch cycle. And now, Planet Tech V4, which we obviously sort of unveiled at the beginning, and there was some really cool panels about it during the day, which I think is going to, I mean, just the quality of, not just Microtech, but going back to the old places like Daymar or selling this whole new world. One of the focuses we got upcoming too, which we not particularly managed to show well this morning, is the social group gameplay, but that is a focus for us to make sure that the FOIP and the VoIP and the group gameplay stuff works well. It's important for us to get stuff working for, as Sean mentioned, for the Theaters of War, but just in general, playing, grouping up with your friends in the universe, doing stuff. And so that is a focus, and you'll see us iterating on that for 3.8, 3.9, and onwards. More robust missions. So we've got some stuff coming up in 3.8 that is interesting. We're starting to introduce AI into some of the missions, like say the rescue the hostage on the 890, which we had in an ATV. We were showing a very early version of it that will be in 3.8, and there'll be some other ones along that line of missions, and that's multi-part missions, which also what we're showing is sort of an early version of a multi-part mission, what we showed at the beginning and we're going to end with here, that 3.9.40 onwards. Then, sometime around about middle of this year, I think, so full universe persistence. And that is the persistence that allows us to save everything, period. So you can take your coffee mug that you've got in the Carrack and explore on a planet and drop it in a forest, get back on your Carrack, fly away, and someone else could go to that forest and see that coffee mug, or you could come back and see it if someone else hasn't stolen it. And so and that iterates to every dynamic item in the game gets saved off. So basically, we save the state, it goes back to a cloud database. It's what we're calling the iCache. Of course, there'll be some stuff like, we want to be smart where like people can't like stack 1,000 turtles in a place. So obviously, we'll have some policies on the items. So at some point, when we're saving it to the database, we'll say, well, this is a low importance item. There's too many in this area. So therefore, and this one's been around too long, so we just won't bother saving that to the database. And then you'll just sort of be like, oh, someone came along while you weren't there and took the turtle or cleaned it up. But in general, usually, so the permanent structures. So one thing that gives us is the ability for you as players to go around the universe and ultimately, you want to create your own base somewhere, create your own homestead. You should be able to settle down and put a base there, and it will be recorded back to the iCache, and you can come back to it, and it will be there, and it will persist. And so I think the opportunity for emergent gameplay that comes from that is going to be fantastic, because as you saw with what Tony was doing in his presentation before, we're going to have dynamic resources in the universe. We're also going to persist those. So they'll be finite, so there'll be only so much gold or hadonite or whatever it is on various moons or planets. And as they get mined out, then you'll have to find some other place to move to it. And there's an especially rich seam. I can see a group of players coming, setting up camp there and starting to mine the resources. And then I can see some other groups saying, oh, well, that's great. I want some of that. They show up. And then the last thing, which we won't, I think, get to by the end of next year, but we'll be very close to it, is server meshing. And so everything we've been doing up until then, and that's when I think everything fully comes alive, is the server meshing allows us to have a lot more players in the same area. But the work that we've done on the kind of server-side OCS, where you can change the point of view of the server arbitrarily anywhere around and save off state, is exactly what you need for server meshing. Because what happens in a server, if more people arrive, say, I don't know, in New Babbage, and you suddenly go, oh, we can only run 100 people or 200 people or whatever the number we can simulate on the server, and there's now 201 people, you say, okay, I'm going to spin up a second server. Here's another view onto New Babbage, and these players are on that, and you just keep on spinning up more to take on the load in areas. And so that's why we needed the server OCS and the bank culling and the full persistence, and it enables server meshing. So that's the next thing. Once we deliver the full persistence, we're actually already starting to work on the network side of what we need for the server meshing right now. But we're really excited about that, because then that's going to allow a sort of dynamic seamless universe that won't have the same player count restrictions. And by the way, we'll also, we don't know quite with server OCS what we'll be able to do, but we're going to start experimenting with some player counts in the future and maybe upping it, because at the end of the day, if we're not simulating the whole system and it's a smaller subset of that, we'll be able to have more players. So we'll see in the midterm if we get more players into a server right now, but longer term server meshing is what's going to allow us to really have a fully dynamic universe. And here we're at the jump point to the PYRO system. Now, you don't necessarily need infrastructure for jump points, but the more traveled ones are the ones that used to be traveled, which PYRO used to be, but not particularly anymore, have what we call jump rings around them, and they help stabilize the jump point to make for a smoother jump. If you don't have one, then it's more difficult, and the entrance is harder or difficult. But sometimes you may want to try a sort of side jump point to get into a system, like if you're a smuggler, because the main ones would be more, essentially, they are like a checkpoint. It's like going through a border patrol or something.
It is basically a port. So when we're building the solar system, one of the things that we think about are entrances for, obviously, economy reasons, and you saw that with Tony Z's talk, of way to interject new things into the solar system. So around the Stanton jump points, the three major ones, we will have space stations, so that you can go and travel, and let's say you had a long jump point and you want to stop and basically drop something off there, you can. Refuel, or do whatever you need to do. So we will have space stations around those jump points that you can go and interact with. Now, obviously, when you go into a little bit more lawless system, I don't want to say like building a wall.
Yeah. Well, in the case of PYRO, it used to be a regulated system.
Yes.
That once they strip-mined it out, no one goes there anymore, and it's fallen sort of into a lawless state.
Yes.
And so this is not really this isn't a very often traveled jump point, but we're going to take it because that's where we have to go to head to PYRO station. So as you can see, the jump ring, which is delineating where the point is off in the distance, and Sam is going to line herself up for us to jump to PYRO system. And this is essentially sort of the infrastructure you occasionally would, you can have around. Some places would have bigger stations, but as I said, the PYRO route isn't a very particularly well-traveled one.
But also with this, I guess with the cloud tech, you see the possibilities of us going in and mining that, and then it affecting your radar, it being booby-trapped, all these kind of gameplay possibilities, I feel, open up with these unique points of interest.
Do you guys think we should open it?
Yes.
I think we should go.
Yeah.
Let's do it. That's actually a super cool view. See that one? How good that is. That looks awesome. Okay. So going through a wormhole is a little bit like riding the rapids. You don't really have much. You have lateral control,
but it's being on a current.
You're being pushed on a current,
yeah.
And you've got to keep inside the boundaries of the wormhole. And actually, if Sam gets a little close, you'll sort of see interference on his screens. And of course, Stanton's just going away in the background, and PYRO's coming in here. Yeah, and you can see there's actually a current that we put in the wormholes, and you sort of see the particles that are giving you the idea where the centerline current is. And you have to anticipate to keep on the course, because if you don't, and you go off and you go into the boundaries of the wormhole, you could end up just being spat out in just space in the middle of nowhere, or severely damaged. Go around, Glenn. Okay, so we are now in the PYRO system, and we streamed out Stanton as we were traveling, and streamed in PYRO. The other side, by the way, has got an awesome light on the side. Yeah.
Sam. Set a route to the ruin station, Sam.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
There we go.
All right, Ian. Hit it.